would you mind introducing yourself for the audience, please?
Hey, Simon, I'm Tyler Tilley. I'm a painter. I love to create. I've been painting for about, like, it's getting close to 20 years. And so I've been doing this full time for at least a decade. And, but it's been obsessive for like 16, 17, since 2008 is kind of where I put my marker. And as time goes on, it's starting to kind of really pick up and the momentum's going and it's becoming quite a beautiful life, and it's quite challenging and it's quite enlightening, and it's a gift and a curse. And that's kind of what art is to me. It is my it's kind of why I was put on this planet.
That's nice.
To create stuff. Yeah. That was quite the long pause, but I don't even think I knew where I was going with that. So I just had to think, what does art really mean to me, and who am I, and kind of putting these labels on things. But I love creating stuff. Like it's the perfect match for my type of brain. I just have this flood of ideas all the time, and bringing my ideas to life is like the most exciting thing, and it wakes me up, gets me out of bed. So that's kind of how I would describe myself. There might be some points in there that make sense and some that don't.
That's fantastic. And I should say, for the audio listeners, your work looks unlike anyone else's that we've had on the podcast. And I consciously like to get artists like you on because it's beautiful work, it's exciting, it's really creative, and it's hard for anyone listening to understand without a bit of a description. How would you describe the work that you make?
You know what? Kind of depends who's asking. If I went to if I'm talking, are you a painter, Simon?
I am, yeah.
And how do you describe your work?
My work is impressionistic and loose, and sometimes too highly saturated for my own liking. So I'm trying to make it more tertiary and grey it down a little bit more consciously in recent times.
Hmm. If I had to be brutally honest, it's kind of like a cartoon realism. And if I had to lie and speak to a gallery, I'd say it's a impressionistic surrealism, and it's influenced by I jump around a lot, so I feel like it's actually on my website, or like if on in my bio, I might say something like surreal pop art. But when I say it out loud, I don't. It's not that I don't feel confident with that. I feel like doesn't hit the nail on the head for me. So I'm almost still searching for. And sometimes I stream. That's what I was trying to tell you earlier. That, yeah, wait a minute. I have talked. Why was I talking? And I was streaming maybe over the last 6 months. I go in and out of vogue with it, or I go in and out of. I don't always have the energy for it, but I was talking, and a lot of the people that I was interacting with were giving me some really great descriptive ways to kind of categorize my work. And I thought, yeah, like they were just kind of coming off the top of their head with it. I'm like, yeah, like cartoon explosivism, help me. A cartoon explosive, or man, I'm missing the words. I would, but yeah, finding how I would describe my work is I'm gonna tap out and just say surreal pop art.
Yeah, that's fair. I would put it, if I were to describe it to someone else, I would say expressionistic pop art because it looks as though you've got a lot of emotion and feeling that you put into your work that just explodes through recognizable forms. But that's just how I'd describe it to someone so that they know that expressionism can be on the dark side. It can kind of show a more explicit nature to the expression of art and creativity, and then pop art being the recognizable characters and themes and some brighter colors, but the way that you use them is really clever and interesting. So it is difficult to explain, to describe, and I think it's an amalgamation of several influences you must have, but it's very intricate work. As you said, it can be realism is definitely an aspect of it as well. Have you painted like this since you started, or has it developed over these 20 years that you said you've kind of really honed your skill?
We started off. I started off painting large scale abstract.
Really?
Yeah, and so I there was a few influences. My brother brought a large canvas home, and we decided that we were going to paint together and then sell it to the rich. That was literally the game plan. So we were just going to like get really messy. We started getting free paint from the junkyard, from like the garbage dump, and then my sister joined us. So then it was literally three siblings painting in my parents' basement and creating like these massive, as you said, expressionistic kind of like abstract pieces that were inexperienced and full of emotion. And I think one thing that if I reflect back on that time, I do have when you have something, I would like to think that when I look at something that looks good, that looks very appealing. And it's simply cosmetically that, you could hang that on your wall and it would pass as a piece of abstract art. And so I had that confidence and that ability right away with, knowing when a painting was finished and knowing what a painting needed. And so here we are, three siblings painting in my parents' basement. And we did that for quite a while. And I think for me, that was like the missing piece. So like from there, I never looked back, which was a weird thing. I've always kind of like dipped my hands in different things over the years, but as time has gone on, it's only been more of a narrow scope of what I do. And that was the initial kind of catalyst for everything. Like I ended up opening a gallery because of abstract art. So I would paint these massive, 10-foot paintings that were just abstract expressionism, inspired by Pollock and like very ignorantly creating paintings to sell to the rich. But then the whole process was it changed my life. Like just my brother bringing that canvas home changed everything. And I think how kind of, I don't think I'm jumping ahead, but one way I've kind of looking back on why there was a big shift was that like I really believe, and I think there's positive and negatives about both, but like with abstract, it's like for the audience. It's really for the audience. Like you interpret an abstract work, you put yourself in it. I see this, I see that. It's very subjective. And so then I thought, well, abstract works is this sounds negative, but I just know where I was when I was painting like that. I was like, I don't have anything to say. You tell me what you see. So it's almost like for someone, I don't have anything to say. And then over time, I realized that no, I have a lot to say. And as life has happened and and the ups and downs, like, oh, I have more to say. And so I want to explain, this is what you need. I'm going to serve you. And you, obviously, everyone's still going to see what they want to see. But that my intention has shifted. Originally, abstract is like, yeah, what do you see? And it's almost like, oh, I see an elephant running through the field. Like, well, that's way better than what I had. And like, right, like that's perfect. But with figurative or some sort of story element or representation, or all of a sudden it's like, no, I'm going to serve you, and you're going to eat what I feed you. Like, it's very direct, it's very personal, and it's very intentional. And so like that happened about 8 years into my art kind of career, where all of a sudden it's like I'm navigating, and I just happened to, I think after a painting non-figurative abstract paintings for like 8 years straight and pretty much every day, it took a lot out of me. Like I gave it everything I had, and like literally blood, sweat, and tears, listening to music, being consciously unconscious, dumping all over the paint, getting destroying my parents' basement. Like they literally had to renovate it after. I'm not talking about like a few splat. I mean, we destroyed it. And so like I gave that everything, and then I moved to a bigger city. I moved to Toronto, and then I like kind of took over this bottom of this warehouse. And so like we're talking like an operation to create abstract art. And then I think the tank just slowly I kept draining the tank. Now, the whole abstract experience I couldn't be painting the way I'm painting today without that arc. That arc is so pivotal and was such a necessary, even just because I didn't go to school. I didn't like, there's zero, this is even pre-internet basically. Like there's just I was my only influence. And then other than, movies and society and culture. And I think I had an eye for, again, aesthetic, but I had to learn what paints would do. I had to learn what mediums would do. I had to learn everything. And like, what happens when you leave a blob of paint? How does it dry? I had to go through that entire process on being self-taught. And now when you keep refining and over time, and then you add that element of like, oh, I have something to say, I have a story to tell, but using all my experience and then kind of like mashing that and forcing that into figurative work, again, with no training. Not that that's a big deal, but meaning like, okay, I got to figure out how to like look at like my brushes today compared to like my bare hand. It's almost like it's going from like a primitive kind of mindset to like, okay. And then now I do watch tutorials. Now I watch these masters, like what's the difference between stand oil and liquid, and on and on and on. Like now I've gone through this refining process over the years versus to look back on, there was like literally chucking buckets of paint on a canvas and then swirling it about to see if I can see anything in it, right? Like looking for something. I still take that mindset when I'm painting what I'm painting right now, as I talk to you, is like, I don't see anything yet. So I just keep painting. And when I was mentioning the streaming earlier, you have to paint. So for my process and the way that I paint is I'm just putting on paint right now. I'm putting on skin tone. That's as much as I know. I have some shadow here. It won't be anything even to show you by the time we're done our conversation, but I'm just looking to see what I see as I put down paint on the canvas. And that's very similar to what the abstract mentality and the journey that I've had is, where I would just throw things down on the canvas and can you see anything in there? Even if it's just simply categorized as, that's beautiful, keep that. Now take away the rest and then add on to that, or leave it, stop. Like with abstract, it's just like, hey, stop, it's done. And that could happen after 5 minutes, and that can happen after like 48 hours of like a psychosis painting session that just doesn't, like, you can't escape from. Like literally, like you can get totally engulfed in this mindset where you cannot abandon the painting at any cost, as if your life depended on it. And I would have those experiences with abstract. So I definitely hold abstract art at with high regard, but it's just led me to a place where now using those emotions, that energy, and just putting in some sort of quote unquote refined practice. So that's kind of how, I don't even remember what your question was.
No, it's a great answer. It's a great answer because you did cover going from abstraction into figurative work. And that's what I was wondering is where this work came from. And I can see the relation between what you produce now and more abstract work, because even in the figurative forms, there's mutation and abstraction occurring in these figures, in these subjects that you're rendering. Just like over your shoulder, the image looks like it could be the one behind you there, which you're no, the one next to, but just next to that, yeah, that one there looks like if it were black and white, it could be like a Rorschach test, like an ink blot test, because
That's how it
it's
started.
so abstract. Really, is that how it started?
Literally, I folded a piece of large like tissue paper and put it a large ink blot, and that week it was like, oh my god, I'm gonna start all my paintings like that with an ink blot as a Rorschach test, and then see what I see in it. And the idea, I couldn't even finish this painting, so it went from an idea like I've got it. This is $1 million idea. All my paintings from here on out will start off as Rorschach tests. And then a week later, I abandoned this painting. I really like it actually, but I haven't had the energy to go back. I want to kind of add some glazing on it and stuff, but it's pretty much done as far as I'm concerned. However, that idea was so important and so pivotal, and it meant so much to me that it created work for it created art from that idea. And mind you, as I say that out loud, it's not that I abandon it forever. I usually have cycles, so things kind of for me as I continue to paint, I realize, oh, I've been here before. Oh, I've had these ideas before. They're not all foreign. They're not all new. They just kind of they come into my life and they kind of come back to me. So I think that's really important because despite me saying I've abandoned all the Rorschach, no, I've noticed that there are elements where I will just literally put down some abstract, even lettering. Sometimes I'll start my paintings with some quotes that I like or some thoughts. And then I just literally try to pull out imagery from those letters by adding more, usually whatever color they are, but just start adding skin tones and things to those letters and just try to build from there. And for example, can I show you something?
Please, yeah.
There's no reason this piece in particular, other than it's right in line with what my thoughts were. So, I had no idea where this was going to go. But I might be exaggerating, but I think for the sake of this conversation, it started off with something almost like insulting your mom in sort of like a juvenile way. I'm haunted by the ghost of your mom or something like that. But literally just non sequitur, silly, childlike. And so I would write something out, or it might have been some sort of Bowie quote. I have no idea now. It's gone. But I started out with these letters and these quotes kind of in this fashion. And then I just would pull out some of the imagery through a refining process. And it started off typically, I think with this one, it started off with acrylic. And then I pull out start seeing something in there. And so I'll keep it and then refine it. And then I'll turn to oil and start doing a lot of glazing. So that's kind of I know I jumped right ahead with the process there, but that's still that abstract, everything to bring it full circle, with the Rorschach test and the lettering and the random abstract element. And then even taking it all the way back when I was younger and my initial in the beginning, is that same idea of just what do you see in there, and can I pull something out something from it, and is it good enough to finish the painting? That's one thing I think I'm lucky. I usually have enough gas in the tank, as an analogy, to finish the painting. There's enough in there for me to complete it. If every other painting other than the one that you pointed out, they're all finished. I don't have that problem where I have stacks of ideas that I can never complete for whatever reason. I usually have enough in the tank to finish the painting, and at least where I call it finished. I might kind of weasel out and abandon it, but I'm okay, it's done, never going to touch it again, and I'm not going to paint over it. But I'm it's the idea's done, the tank's finished, and I'm good.
So what does that require? What does the tank need time wise ordinarily for you to finish a piece? Because there's a lot of work that goes into these. These aren't, left loose. You really do tighten up certain aspects of the painting and leave sometimes the backgrounds, just like that one in the background I can see now, splashy and loose and with loads of texture, which is really nice. And then you'll tighten up the forms in the foreground. So what's required in the tank to finish a piece of work, time wise? Generally, because I suppose it'll be different for each piece and for the scale.
It depends on the subject matter. Like I have done, like if I'm doing a portrait or something that has more meaning, maybe perhaps to somebody else, including not necessarily the portraits for someone, but if I'm maybe kind of honoring a subject or even dishonoring a subject, but I'm giving them attention, like I might spend some more time like, hey, I want it to look like so and so. I really want to convey this message. They can take time, but normally I'm in a groove, or I'm for the longest time, I'm in a place where there's no reason for me to spend a month on a painting. There's no reason for me to spend a week on a painting. I don't get off on that. I can give you an essay on why, pulling, having this long period of time on one specific piece could be really valuable for a number of different reasons. But for me, that's not typically I get inspired by the idea and I get motivated by the idea. And I, like the gift and the curse kind of thing, is like, I'll be on to something new in a week. So you got this small amount of time to give it everything I got in this small window. And so usually 2 or 3 days, but like they can be pretty heavy duty sessions where like I can sit in front of a piece for 8 hours in a day. And then there can be elements where all I've done is added a glaze or a couple of glazing layers and let it dry for a day, but I'll be working on something else. So like when I say 2 to 3 days, it's not always kind of like, they're not linear. I'll be jumping around. This background that I painted on the painting that I'm painting, like that was done a month ago, and then that will sit. And then because all of a sudden I have something, I want to create it. And so on a whim, I'll literally be working on something else. I'll take it down and put the prep little piece of paper in this case, because I just want to work on something. I thought it would be interesting, obviously, to talk to you while I'm thinking to see how I speak, but while I'm actually working on something. But I prep a lot of canvases. I have canvases that are primed and gessoed, and then I have canvases with backgrounds, and then I have, but I don't have any pieces that are like 90%. I have like, if they're at 90%, then I'll just finish them, or even honestly, maybe 50%. Anything after 50, I will sit down and complete it. Otherwise, if I don't, there's something in me that's like, okay, maybe you need to shift. Maybe something needs to happen where we really take the initial idea in a totally different direction. If I find that I'm like stalling out, so if all of a sudden things are slowing down, I'm like, oh man, I really can't paint this vampire Donald Trump right now. Well, then maybe I need to like adjust. Maybe we're going to go in a totally different direction. But then I might get excited, and then I can finish the painting. But if the idea has enough steam and enough energy, enough gas, I just go with it until it's finished. So
yeah. Well, for the audio listeners, you are currently painting whilst we're talking, and the background that you mentioned looks to me from here that it was just a plain black background. Is that what this started off with?
This piece specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like, I don't know if you can relate to this. Like I have different, how would I explain? I get excited, like, so I thought, I'm sorry, it's not here, or is it? Sorry, Simon.
All right, take your time.
Okay, this this will make sense. Okay. So little things like this makes me feel like this makes me feel kind of like a kid, I guess. But like, so when I go to an art store, so there's this watercolor paper, and I just what's the thickness, like it has to, because I'll be putting oils on this, but so I found this little pad and I'll just buy it and it'll come up over time. We're talking probably years. All of a sudden I'll pull out a piece of paper from it. And then when I'm shopping online, I found these like scrap pieces of paper. I haven't done anything with them, but I just have them ready to go. And then I'll tape them onto my boards, and then I'll either gesso them or I won't, or I'll put an acrylic background or I won't. And then I just have them kind of now like laying all over my room, and then they come into play. So that's the extent of the depth of the. So they're just waiting for the idea to come to me, and it's almost like the idea is not grand enough, or it doesn't have again, to use this analogy, it doesn't have enough. I know already this painting that doesn't have a week's worth of gas in it. In fact, it might just have the amount of time for our conversation, well, maybe a little bit after, because I kind of like it, but yes, and having pieces of paper and scraps like that and things that are almost like throwaways is very liberating and I really enjoy it. And sometimes, yeah, I can pull out a really beautiful piece. I'm like, really wish that wasn't a scrap piece of paper, but I only got there because I just all of a sudden something. I don't know if you can relate to that. I'm just flooded by a stream of ideas all day long, and I have to fight them all the time. So it can be, and some of them, the spectrum is really, really big, and some of them are super dark, some of them are super adorable. And like, I try to like narrow, like, can we get something that's really innocent but perverted, or something that's really childlike but demonic, or can we get somewhere that's really beautiful and ugly? And so like that's kind of, but I'm flooded by ideas all the time, and so I've just kind of learned to always have, in this case, to kind of explain, like, I just have this scrap piece of paper that in theory has been prepped and ready to go, so that when that idea comes and when I just want to create something, there's no barricade for me. I can just start creating right away.
We have been working on something in the background.
We've had previous guests revisit the channel to give us additional content, everything from studio tours, sketchbook tours, talking us through the process of paintings, and all kinds of additional treats which you're exclusively going to see as a patron who supports the channel.
So by supporting us on Patreon, you help the channel keep going. There's a lot of work put into this, from the video editing to the sourcing of guests. So you really help us find those guests and to put the content out.
We have lots of content planned for the near future. So the links for that will be in the description of this video and in the description on the podcast channels. And otherwise, you can go on to Patreon and type in Painting Insights Podcast and support us that way. Thanks very much. Enjoy the video. It makes me wonder about how many ideas have to go by the wayside, because you either have to write down what they are, make voice notes, or have a sketchbook. Or I don't know if you log all of the ideas.
Sorry, I have like stacks of books, and I even have I'll do voice notes and then also phone notes, and then like I do like to write down my ideas. I have like a stack of, I'm not going to run and grab them for you. Like, I'm excited to show somebody these, but yeah. So I have like a stack of books that I just have my ideas in there and what I need, as far as like even like lists of supplies and stuff like that. But yeah, like, so I have so many. Like also, me and my wife will be on our way somewhere on our scooter, and I'll literally have to pull over the side of the road and write them the ideas down, because like I'm just like, I can't lose this. I can't afford wait till we get to our location, because then it could be gone, which is, we all know, like all of a sudden, oh, what was that? And sometimes the idea is not worth to pull over. And so I just kind of like, oh, there's something there. There's a lot of meat on that bone and I don't want to lose it. Same with like before bed. I remember like I learned my lesson. I have a great idea before I'm about to pass out. And I say, oh no, I'm too tired and I'll get it in the morning, and you don't. But I remembered I had something. That's all I remember. I don't remember what the idea is, but I remember I had something. And then, so I'll have to force myself to wake up, or sorry, like get up out of bed and go keep a record of it. And what I've learned too is like, I'll go through these ideas. I'm like, oh, this is trash. This is garbage. What do you think? Like, oh, this book of gold is actually like a hunk of junk. However, that's why I started by telling him when that idea is just like blossoming and just like there's like a little spark, it is why I paint. So that's kind of why I wanted to like shoehorn that in there for you, is because it's why I dedicated my life to this. I think I like that kind of way of framing it than whatever I said earlier, but like I've dedicated my life to my ideas. And I want to technically, and I want to be able to convey them as accurately as I can and as skillfully as I can. So then now you have this other element of like getting better at something. And like, with abstract, I'm trying, I'm presenting this image, but there hasn't been enough time for me to add skills to that. And then, as I mentioned, and now I actually have a direction I want to take the audience, and then let's get better at it. Let's get technical and bring them to life exactly how I envision them in my mind, because you have a vision in your mind and what you create doesn't match the vision in your mind. And so it's like, well, get better at it. And let's get it. Let's take the time. And for me, it's not even taking the time. I love to get better. That's one cool thing about art, is like, if you naturally just keep getting better the more you do it, right? And that's with everything, I suppose. But like, I've just seen that in retrospect for myself. Like, oh, the more I paint, the better I get. And but I don't think what I'm kind of saying there is I never said it like, oh, I want to get better and better. I've just noticed it just happens. It just happens inevitably. But I loved all the stages up till now, and I only keep getting better, especially just comparing myself to myself. I've only improved, and then that makes the process of having a vision and bringing it to life so much more gratifying and so much more exciting when you have something in your mind floating around, like, okay, bring that to life.
Yeah.
And
no, I completely agree. I can relate a lot because I make a lot of voice notes and just notes on my phone, and I have books full of ideas as well. So I can completely relate, especially to the, just about to fall asleep and then an idea comes up, which feels like a good idea at the time. So I have very similar pages and pages worth of bad jokes and strange ideas that don't follow through, but they were there at the time. It just seemed like it made sense. But it's also,
let me pause you on that there.
Yeah.
Do you find that the fact that you just mentioned bad jokes, do you see any overlap or any sort of relationship between joke telling and art or painting specifically?
Interesting. Well, I've not really thought about that. Do you? Is that why you're asking? Do you see that overlap there?
Yes, I do. Because again, it just comes from like a simple, like, I'll keep this tight, it's just the idea, right? So you have this idea, you have the execution. With stand-up comedians, they need an audience, right? You can tell jokes in the mirror, but you need an audience. And there's a very interesting dynamic with creating something and having an audience. And so I'm really fascinated with that overlap. And then I also think the idea is like with paintings, especially the way that I paint, because I paint a lot. Some pieces really land like a joke. they really make sense. They hit a large audience. You get a lot of perhaps in this case some really positive feedback, and it makes you feel good. And then you have some pieces that are just like, I mean, they're embarrassing, or they just miss, right? They bomb as far as in thinking of, as a comedian, or jokes in that context. Like they just miss. And so I found that there's a lot of overlap. And then the idea of like refining it and going over it again, because for me, some paintings I've painted, whether it's subject matter or ideas, quite a few times. It's like they'll come back again. Like, oh, I remember I was telling my mother last week that I photographed. Do you want a quick anecdote? Or
Oh, please, anecdote, yeah, please. Yeah.
I went to Cambodia 8 years ago or something like that. And for me, I was solo, and there was, I could have done anything. And I decided to go to the like local garbage dump. That's just what I do. And so I went to, but I had the intention of exploring and taking photographs, and just like, it just unfolded that way. It wasn't like I set out ahead of time. However, once I arrived, I was like, yeah, let me check out this garbage dump. And I get there, and on one hand, it's a garbage dump. On the other hand, I was like, oh my God, this is wild, because the ground was smoking and like smoldering. Don't ask me why. And but there was quite a few pockets that were like steaming out of the ground. And then there was giant herds of animals that were being shepherded by an elderly Cambodian man that looked like he's done this all his life. His skin has been totally burnt by, not burnt, his texture of his skin was that this is all he knows. And he had like literally a cane, like a large like cane, like a shepherd would have. And he was wrangling all the animals, everything from goats and cows, and they were eating all the garbage. And then we would eat them. Their purpose was for them to be consumed. So they were literally on this garbage mound that was probably, I don't know. You said you're in Wales. I don't know if I can put that, but you're where you are is like, I'm just gonna say acres. Like this wasn't a small garbage. This was like legit. This is where that area like was taking in the garbage, and so it was massive. And the skies were pristine blue, and then you had this. I called him the garbage shepherd, and I took a bunch of photos of him, not his face or anything, but him from his in reverse. So he was heading up the mound, and all the animals were following him. And I photographed him, and the blue, like I said, the skies were sky blue with some beautiful clouds. And then you see this shepherd wrangling the animals. And then if you look closely at the image, you're like, wait, is that all garbage? And yes, it's all garbage. And so it's like, it's such a beautiful idea and concept, and the photos turned out pretty good. I'm like, I want to paint that. And that painting, every so often, I want to paint that specific subject matter again. And that's like, okay, now I can compare to what it used to look like my first attempt at it. Then a couple of years later, again. And then recently, the reason why this kind of story came up to me again is because I saw this where I'm in now. I saw this man feeding the monkeys, as in a daily routine. So this is a little less kind of a tragic story, more of like, it's easier to tell, put it that way. But there's this man that comes every day and feeds hundreds of monkeys. It's kind of like no one else is going to feed them, but he takes it on. And I had that same, I'm like, oh my God, he had that blue sky, and he's just got all these monkeys following him because they like on cue at this time of the day, they know. And so it was like the march of the monkeys, like hundreds were waiting, and then followed this guy up the mountain. And then so I have him in reverse and holding these big bags of food. I'm like, oh, wow. So then that idea from, 8 years ago, even, I think longer actually, 8 or 9 years ago, like, oh, now we have this monkey shepherd. And I just thought, oh yeah, that would be interesting if that has enough energy. It doesn't yet, but I'm incubating that idea. And then I can imagine that painting this guy in reverse, looking at the blue sky. Again, I think maybe I put them in the same category. They're very old, and they kind of seem like they've been doing this a lot and for a long time, and I just thought there was really cool overlap. And yeah, so I think what I'm trying to say is just like some of these ideas come back again and again and again and again in different faces and different formats and different ideas, but they kind of the same themes, I guess, and same
narrative, isn't it?
Yeah, same narrative. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like this kind of cycle of life, not to use too much of a cliched expression, that if the animals are eating the junk, you could say it's junk food to kind of a literal extent of us eating animals, and they've eaten junk. So that's going to be, it's like you have grass-fed beef. It's kind of, trash-fed animals. It's a really bizarre process, which, like you said, if that's someone's life and their skin is weathered with that history of that process, it really makes you reflect on the industry, the economy of what that feeds and what that does for the people. But it's fantastic. It's a really grand narrative. I look forward to seeing you produce this, because that is a fantastic idea. And I see what you mean with it relating to joke writing, because of it being that's where it came from, wasn't it?
Right. Yeah. Right. Oh my God, my brain, dude.
It's right though.
Oh, right.
It connects.
Talking about jokes. Oh, yeah.
But it is, it's
That's
fertile ground for joke writing. It is, it's those types of things that make you reflect on your own diet, on the world, on people's lifestyles. It's and then to try and condense it down to something that you can communicate and find some level of humor in and beauty in is the trick, really. And I like the fact that you mentioned earlier about the contrast. You always seem to try and get between the beautiful and the kind of bizarre, or the kind of, sublime and the mundane. And this is part of the magic of the subject matter that you have, but also the style that you make it in is really it's just fascinating to see, because of how well you've learned to paint through hard work. It's really great execution on the pieces themselves. So it's really really compelling for the audience to see, and really inspiring as well. It's great stuff. So you're constantly, I mean, not constantly, you're currently in a point of searching with this piece that you're making for the development of an idea in the process of painting. Is that what I understand you're doing with this piece?
Yes, I don't have any direction right now. Even still, I have a big painting behind me that I've spent 4 solid days on, and I still don't see anything. Like 4 long days and a lot of pain. And it's not completely blind. I have an idea of like where I would like to take it. It's just not going there. And so that means kind of the sky's the limit. It could end up anywhere. It could end up being painted over. Some come together really easy, where I see something like early in the work. So it's like, okay, we're going there. And that's that. Right now, this again, there's a couple elements. It's like, there is a weird thing in my mind when I have a panel that's been gessoed and primed that I know I'm going to frame. It does kind of bit of like, I would like to have some sort of direction, which is almost kind of maybe almost hypocritical, because that large, like I just ordered like their expensive large canvas, stretched canvas. And I'm actually kind of surprised that I let it go like off the rails and spent so much time on it and still to come up with nothing. However, none of that's negative for me. Like it's all, but I am kind of surprised that it's still 4 days in, and it's almost like it might as well be a blank canvas to some extent. And this is kind of an example of that. However, I already see that I'm going to some sort of figurative. I really like little goblins and creatures and like kind of things that really have no. I try to stay away from almost from my own state of mind. Just like I have works that are grotesque and harmful. but that's not typically my MO. However, if it goes there, I let them. And then it's like, and then I just try to monitor myself. Like if I all of a sudden I'm in this zone where I'm producing like these really heavy kind of extreme or obscene pieces, I really love it when I organically just flip. Like yesterday or a couple of days ago, I was painting a frog and suited up as Batman. And I'm like, oh, that made me feel so good. Like, oh, thank God we got out of that like dark pit of hell and just ended up in like a cute frog wearing a Batman cosplay costume. It was like, okay, I'm stable. I'm okay. Like, you know what I mean? So I have that. But then when I have left to my own devices and I'm painting something that's very like on a whim and he might turn out to be disfigured and a little bit haunting and even insensitive or something that is I'm really obsessed with strong imagery, whether it's in movies or culture or not so much the news, but typically strong imagery that's been manufactured. It speaks to me, and then I'll start getting stimulated by. I hate to say it, but the only way that I can really sum it up most convincingly is just strong, bold imagery. Have you ever heard of the director Peter Greenaway?
I've heard the name. I don't know if I am familiar with his films.
I just discovered him, so it's just something that but he creates movies like really with a painter's mind, so it's worth investigating. I think you'll get a lot out of it. He created this movie called The Cook, The Thief,
The Wife and Her Lover. I've heard of it. I've not seen it.
Like highly recommended. And then I watched earlier, like last week, I watched a movie, kind of go in and out of kind of these areas where I really will actually sit down and consume a movie, usually before bed or something. But The Phantom of the Paradise. But again, that movie I wouldn't necessarily recommend. But there's certain imagery from that movie that is like that's a painting. As soon as I see it, you just pause the movie. Like that's a painting. I really like old giallo like horror movies. If you just pause the movie and remove the sleeves and remove all the stuff or like the slasher element, which in my case it doesn't. But I'm just saying, if you just look at it objectively, it's a beautiful still. Like the sharp reds and the deep shadows and the cinematic kind of like the lighting and the figures that are selected and the way that they're posed, they're all, especially in that time frame, like 70s, 80s, like, the rotary phones and like, there are all these like, so I get, that will just like kind of get in my mind subconsciously. And then I notice that like right now I'm doing a lot of work that is, I won't get too ahead of myself, but Goya had a time period where he called it the black paintings, right? And so I just noticed like for the last probably month and a half, I've been starting a lot of my pieces with just like a dark brown or a dark black. Typically, it's not black out of the tube, but it's just like some sort of like, and then I want to pull something out of those shadows. So it's kind of the other way around. Like I want to see what starts. This piece that I'm working on right now is just like I added skin tone at the beginning, and now I'm just going to keep pulling it, almost like a string, from the shadow. And so again, because I just painted a monkey and the Batman frog, I'm not too worried about what I'm going to pull out of the shadow, which is kind of like, oh, it's actually a relief, because from that mindset, like, oh my God, if I just keep tugging this string from the abyss, what is it always going to be like darkness and morbid and even hard to show, like, when I post and my mom sees it, it's like, good Lord, son, like get your shit. But no, it's kind of fun. So like some of them are really disturbing and some of them are really cute. It's like, so it's fun to pull on that thread. And then but the starting point's a little different, starting with this black. The canvas might as well just be pure black, and then I'm just going to pull from it and see what happens. So, yeah.
You mentioned earlier, give it everything you've got. It was something that you came out with as, what your process and your thought process with making the work. And it reminded me that I fell upon that image in your timeline on Instagram as an image that stood out as a very conventional painting from the movie Striptease. Was
Showgirls.
Showgirls, sorry, not Striptease, of course. Yeah, Showgirls. Give it everything you've got. And it was unusual to see a very conventional painting come out of you when you have this timeline of amazing mutation type of paintings happening. And it makes me wonder, was that more difficult for you to finish, being that you are so so free with your impulse to kind of pull out the imaginative side of your painting?
No, because I sat on that idea and that imagery earlier. I was mentioning the strength, like how impactful strong imagery is, and how much weight it has on me, and how much I really consume it and goes deep in my psyche. And show, I could literally talk about that the specific concept for an hour, because you're dealing with me in, like, not my adolescence, but my early teens, and the exploitation of that movie and all the baggage that comes with it. And that stuck with me for years. And that, that was that kind of, depending on who you're talking to, but like, my understanding is, like, that movie, I think, destroyed her career, right? There's so much in there. And as it got older, I'm like, wait a minute, I think, like, at the time, this might be a little crude, but forgive me. At the time that movie comes out, and her father probably disowns her. Like, it's an exploitation nightmare, hope fueled, to my understanding, that was just a garbage heap, and every critic shit on it, and it was just ripped apart. And then I don't think she ever recovered. And then 30 years later, I think that might be exaggerated, maybe 20 years later, all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, it's a fucking masterpiece. And it's like, it's this campy, sleazy, I think, like, I wanted, like, not that, this is never my intention, but, like, I would, if she saw that, I would want her to feel good about it, right? I could easily take it and make it disgusting. I could easily kind of also be exploitative, but, like, no. And I just saw her, like, on these, if you isolate that still, and the references that I was using, going through all these references, she's literally giving it, she thinks this is her big break, not the end of her career. When she's on stage, literally, like, and figuratively in the movie, dancing in Las Vegas, she's giving it everything she's got. And that was the name of that band. I was like, give it everything you've got. And all of a sudden, I think, again, this sounds kind of odd or whatever. If you look and you start looking at Elizabeth Berkley, you look at her, she has a beautiful family. She's doing good. Like, I'm adding all this story to the, like, how I see it, how it impacted me. She's doing fine. Like, she doesn't need my insights at all. I'm not claiming that she does, but just as how I spin the story and how I build on an idea. And finally, I'm like, oh, I want to paint her, and I have enough. It was a big piece, and I have enough in the tank to see that come to life. Because I knew it would take a lot of work, and I knew there is an element of just like a straight portrait using a reference. I can often find it. It's almost boring, but I also, a better way with this, it's just a different kind of process and a different type of mindset that I need to have in order to complete that. But then that idea, like I said, that wasn't like on a whim. That wasn't I'm going to paint. I think her name's Naomi in the show. I'm going to paint Naomi from, like, no, I was sitting on that idea. I think I had that reference, like, No Order of a Life, for like 6 years in I'll keep files on my computer of references of strong imagery. Right now, I've just told you, like, I'm in that Phantom of the Paradise kick. I get the movies, whatever, but there's strong imagery in there. There's strong imagery in this Peter Greenaway guy that I just discovered. Like, and the way that if you watch, there's a doc I can send it to you. It's only like 20 minutes. It's unbelievable the way that he describes his movie. He's like, if you could have movies or painting, what would it be? Like, just painting. And this guy's a director. It's unbelievable. Anyways, I'm so attached. I'm so in that. So just to kind of put a button on the Showgirls piece, was like, that idea was incubating for so long. And all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, I have this perfect canvas that really matches the ratio to this reference. I think it'll look really clean. I just see it. I can see it come to life, and so, like, then I'll make that commitment that can really bring it. I've painted, people that are really close to me in the past, but then you're right, because where if you really want to meet me where I'm at, it's not going to just be like, hey, paint my dog, hey, paint me and my family. It's like, it's almost like my mom did this for me, which is actually a beautiful gift. She's like, hey, paint me, and then why don't you just throw like tattoos all over my face? But she gave me that gift of like, just do whatever the hell you want. And I'm like, but obviously it's my mom, so I'm not gonna paint her like how I'm painting this guy right now, or some sort of like, no, I'm gonna put this, but I'm gonna get creative. She allowed me to be myself. So like, if my standard is like, I don't want to be known as, the showgirls, but however, I think it's really good to like dedicate yourself and go down that road, refine my skills. Like, hey, are those her lips? Yes or no? No. Well, do them again. Is that the shape of her arms? Yes or no? Like keep going. With something like this, you never have to ask yourself that question. Are those like, no, like it's all almost unconscious. It's all, I'll use reference. I have my screen, I have everything. Like I'm looking at this piece and I have everything from Beetlejuice, He-Man to Will Ferrell to Drake to Lemmy from Motorhead, right? Like, so it's like, those are like, that's what's getting dumped into there. But I think it's important to like, all of a sudden I get this really good idea to do this refined, like focused portrait of something. I think that's really important for me to always do. They just don't happen all the time because they are a different workflow. They're almost a different personality. I hate to get like too dramatic, but like it's almost like a totally different, but they're really important because sometimes I see strong imagery that I want to bring to life. Like that's worth a painting. You look at this old Giallo film, this trashy kind of like masterpiece like that, but that's still, I want to bring that to life as is. Like it's worth seeing that, 4 feet long by 3 feet. Like I want to see that come to life. And then sometimes I just have that energy and it will come to life. So that specific piece, was not difficult, but it took 6 years to actually paint. And it's funny, the guy that collected it wrote like, hey, can you paint so-and-so? And I said, I can't. I can't. Like I actually, in fact, I need the money, but I can't. I just like, it's totally going to, it's this split personalities, man. When I'm there, I'm ready. But usually it's also got to be something that I'm attached to. It's something that I'm willing to kind of, so even if you have like, hey, I need to be inspired. I need to be the one that like, I want to see this come to light. Therefore, I'm going to dedicate myself to because I'm telling you, by the time you're wrapping up that painting, those last strokes are like, not tedious. They are exhausting. Like, just like, hey, it needs it. You can't abandon it yet. You won't like, yeah, these are things that I already know, but like saying them out loud, but like, no, you need to put another day into this. You have to. And it's like, so that, whereas this painting now is like, no, it's asking to be abandoned. Like I'm painting on a scrap paper that I put a tape border, painted my black acrylic on it. And then when I pulled the tape off, it like pulled out the paper from it. Like perfect. Like so that's coming from a totally different mindset than, okay, I'm going to bring someone to life in some sort of realism or some sort of like representational way. That was a long-winded answer.
I love it. No, I love it. And we're going to do an episode 2, just so everyone knows, because it's been so good talking to you that we can't fit it all into one episode. And this happens with a small amount of guests. As much as I promise it to a lot of guests, it's only been I think 4 guests before. We've had second episodes, and you're definitely one of them. So for people who are watching this, next week will be part 2. But to cap this one off, if people want to see your work, where online would you like them to go to see your work or to support you?
Just my Instagram. Yeah, that's a whole other conversation. I'll just keep it silly. I sell my art on Etsy. Like I have my own website, but I just direct everybody to Etsy if you actually want to buy something. But to kind of like just see what I'm up to, and I'm posting all the time and really trying to take advantage of. Took me a long time to get to a place where I'm really just even comfortable posting in the way that I'm doing it. So I really put a lot of time into my, or where I put my time is my Instagram. I abandoned TikTok, and like I don't post on Facebook anymore. So it's like, okay, I have a rhythm, a routine. I post on Instagram. You'll see where everything I'm kind of working on all the time. And then if people actually buy stuff, I send them to my Etsy, which is Yeah, I like it. I'm happy I did that. It's also something we could talk about maybe next time or something. But like, as far as like what I think works as like trying to be an artist that isn't starving today, those are kind of things that I really, believe it or not, have taken a long time to figure out, like a long time, especially being a 40 something old guy on like these social media things. Like, I'm actually starting to see some really cool results. So I don't know if that's a topic that we ever will get to, but that's what I've discovered recently. So Etsy and Instagram, but you might want to edit this part out for a second, just because I think, yeah, it used to be so different, Simon, like how I would present myself like that. Oh no, tylertilley.com is where you can find. And if you would like to inquire about my work, feel free to. No, it's just like, dude, I got an Etsy page now and my Instagram. Like, it's literally that. Like, I kind of had to like pull a lot of those layers out but it works. Like
Yeah.
what I'm doing right now is really working. So it's kind of like, yeah, I don't need. And yeah, I'll stop there, Simon.
No, that's great. And there'll be links in the description of the video and audio platform for your Instagram and for your Etsy store. If anyone isn't familiar with Tyler's work, I highly recommend you check it out. It's beautiful work, it's amazing work, and it's very unique, not just for this channel, but for artists. You just don't see work that looks like this very often. So thank you so much for being a guest. It's been fascinating getting to know you, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Simon.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode. If you can support the podcast by leaving a like or a comment down below, that would really be great. But what we'd really like is if you're able to leave a review on the podcast channels, wherever you listen to it or download it, because that helps us get spread around the internet so that more people have access to us and able to see what we're making.
Also, follow us on Instagram, and we'd really appreciate it if you like and engage with our posts. Help get the podcast better known. Thanks for listening.